Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another week of the Whole Soul Podcast. I'm so excited today because we have an amazing, amazing human woman guest on today. Her name is Karin hadadan. Did I get that right?
Hadadan, very close.
Hadadan. And yeah, I just want to give a little bit of context to why I invited her on the show and why I felt such a strong call. So, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that, yeah, I've just been moving through collective grief, and I just felt super called to her book that she was sharing about on TikTok, just sharing her story, how she was going through the depths, left her corporate job, just went completely into the unknown. And there was just something in the way that she was speaking, something so true and real and raw in her voice and her story that just carried this medicine, this frequency that I felt like I needed to receive in that perfect moment in time. So I got her book, When Nothing Makes Sense, and yeah, I was in the depths when I started reading this, and within like the first day, I think I read the first 80 pages, and I just felt so seen, like so seen and so understood in that moment. I'm getting emotional. Um,
Oh, I have chills as you're
yeah.
saying this.
Um, but yeah, seriously, it was so moving, and yeah, if you're a highly sensitive woman, which you probably are, if you're listening to this podcast, then you know what it feels like to feel overwhelmed and like super lonely on your journey as you're going through things sometimes. So, yeah, Karin's book just like hit home for me, and I was like, I need to talk to this woman and bring her onto the show because, yeah, it's just so much better when we connect in sisterhood as women and just have these conversations face to face or even through Zoom. So, welcome, Karin. I would love for you to do just a little bit of an intro about who you are right now, whatever feels good and whatever's on your heart.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing all of that and just doing so in a very raw, vulnerable, honest way. And I just want to reflect back to you like, I always pray every day, like, God, let this book reach the right people. And I never know who the right people are, and I don't know how many people that is. I don't know where they would find it. So when someone does come across a TikTok and does choose to purchase a book, to me, it's not a sale, it's not like a number, it's not money. It represents to me a soul who is ready to remember who they are. So that's why I got chills because it sounds like that's the journey that you're on, and I'm just so grateful to be part of it. So you are an answer to my own prayer. So yeah, thank you. Oh my God, who am I? I feel like I've like evolved. I feel like I've lived 77 different lives just in the last 6 months. But I mean, to just kind of summarize who I am like on paper, an author, a writer, a screenwriter, a poet, a creator, multifaceted artist. Um, and I've always been that. When I was a kid, I was performing and writing and painting and creating. And throughout my journey, I'm 29 now, but throughout my teenage years and my 20s, essentially, I went through chronic illness, which was the path towards my own spiritual awakening. And I think if any woman has gone through physical challenges, whether it's chronic illness, hormonal imbalances, I had endometriosis, chronic pain, any of it, it's really your body is so brilliant, and it's really just speaking to you to pivot you back into alignment to fulfill the life that you yourself came here to live. And it was on the journey of healing where I discovered that the root, belief system was that I'm too much, and that fear of being seen and not feeling safe being my true authentic self, who is like this free-spirited creative soul who does things differently, who wants a different life than what I've seen growing up. And it's ironic because I think when you're going through chronic illness, the first thing that you do is blame yourself for it, and you're like, what did I do to be here? And in hindsight, my soul chose all of it. And it was always part of God's plan for me because it was through my chronic illness and the spiritual awakening that actually was the portal and the path for me to realize my childhood dreams, which was to be a writer, to help people, to, be the star on the stage, and to be a leader in many ways. And so everything kind of started to make sense last year as I was finishing and writing this book. And then when I got laid off from my corporate job in December of 2025, that was the answer to all of my prayers because I wanted to just go full force on my calling. And I had wanted to leave for a very long time. I was working in advertising and it was so perfect with where I was and what I wanted to do. It was a very creative environment. And I learned so much while I was there that is actually helping me with my own business. So, like, again, everything happens perfectly and in divine order. So, when I got laid off, it was beautiful because I had wanted to leave, but I kept hearing the voice inside of me saying, not yet, in God's timing, like, I'm going to let you leave when it's, the moment. And that was the moment where I just leaped straight into the unknown. And it was its own spiritual awakening because it's like everything that I've learned all these years was kind of like, okay, that was the trial, that was the test run. Now is where you have to really embody everything that you know, everything that you've written about, everything about the 5D consciousness and unconditional love and wholeness and God. And I feel like it's been 6 months, and I feel like I'm finally starting to exhale and kind of get out of that remaining survival mode. And yeah, I'm kind of in a place right now where I'm kind of taking a step back and being like, I love who I am, everything I've birthed, but how do I want to be in this next chapter, which is starting to begin already? So that's kind of where I'm at right now, in a nutshell.
That is so beautiful. And yeah, it sounds like you're in another threshold, which is funny because I feel like as you step through a new door, there's always going to be something new to step into. And something I want to touch on too is just how you shared that your chronic illness was this opening into just deepening your relationship with yourself, deepening your relationship with God. And same thing happened like with me, how, yeah, just like my illnesses and like literally reaching rock bottom is what opened me up to my spiritual journey, my spiritual path. And so many women that I know have actually been through that journey as well. So it's such a beautiful perspective shift when instead of thinking, like, why is this happening to me? It's like, no, God is actually working for you. And even
Mhm.
though it's hard to see that in the moment, it's like that doorway is opening for you to just like burn everything down to the ground and reorganize yourself from the inside out to actually find what's in alignment. So, yeah, that was
Yeah.
beautifully said. And I love that that's the journey that you've been on because I feel like so many women are going through that right now and might be struggling with like, what's wrong with me? Why is this happening to me?
And I think too, the common pattern that I've seen with every woman who's going through or has gone through a physical condition or illness is that it's the same archetype, right? It's like a beautiful woman on inside and outside who has dreams and wants to express themselves and is sensitive and is so tapped into their intuition and their energy. And the entire outside world has been telling them to dim their light, probably since they were a little kid. And not in a and not to shame the people that facilitated that. It's like
Mhm.
that was part of the divine plan as well. Like we all called in these different souls, whether it's your parents or friends or romantic people, to kind of be that trigger or to kind of actually deepen that wound so that as a woman, you learn how to reclaim that inner power, that divine, sovereign, feminine. And I think for me, what the greatest gift is of this entire journey is that when you're a kid, like you love yourself. We all do. We don't think anything other than that. And then, especially as a woman, you go through your teenage years, your 20s, and you start to resent who you are internally, externally. You hate your body, you hate the way it looks. I certainly did. And now that entire journey really taught me unconditional self-love. And I think that's the greatest blessing for me is to like really look at myself in the mirror and even just my body that I hated all of those years and like finally love the way that I look, who I am, my voice, my energy, my light. And this is so silly, but like I was just in Europe for about 10 days and it hit me that this was the first time in my adult life that I actually loved how I felt in a bikini. And I was like, oh my God, a year ago I was in Europe and I hated how I looked. So, so much can change in a year. And it's not even about how you look. It's like my body hasn't changed that much in the past year. It's the voice inside of my mind that has. So, and of course, that love actually does transform your skin, your glow, your facial structure, your body composition. And so even when I look at pictures for myself from a year ago, I'm like, oh my God, I was so inflamed and I was so puffy. And it's like, I still love that version of me, but like, wow, like that's the power of love, like for yourself. So it's all perfect because I think too women like you and me who are kind of who went through that at a younger age, it really is a blessing because we are the generational breakers in our lineage to really be the first women, maybe in our family history, to choose themselves, to liberate themselves, and to create a life that is a reflection of the soul rather than following the path that has, kind of always been paved. And what a gift to give ourselves, our future generations, but then also honor the previous ones that enabled us to finally choose ourselves. So,
So much gold, so much gold in everything you said. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. It just feels so resonant because that's exactly the path and like the work that I've been so deeply doing for the last few years. And I just want to say, like, holy shit, I'm so proud of you and just like celebrating you for the work that you're doing because yeah, to go from that place of just self-loathing your body and just like having a hard time looking at yourself in the mirror to just feeling that love kind of transform you from the inside out and just like magnetize and radiate outwards is just like the most beautiful and admirable thing ever. And yeah, it's just so inspiring to see you on your creative path and just fully pursuing your soul's callings because so many women, I mean, everybody wants to live their dream life, everybody wants to find that. But yeah, like you're saying, with all of the generational conditioning and patterning and societal conditioning and expectations in your family, like it's so so much, and people are afraid to go deep into that. So, I guess with that, I saw somewhere in your content that you're a first generation American.
mhm.
I am too, and I'm really excited to dive into this because for my whole life, this is something that's been coming into my awareness the last 5 years, I guess, as I entered my 20s, is how I just felt very kind of like black sheep around like kids and just like growing up in school. Like I never felt fully American because my family's from Poland and like we spoke Polish at home. And yeah, I just never felt like I was a part, and there was a lot of shame that I carried for being Polish American and for speaking another language. So I'm curious to know how that has impacted you, maybe just like the generational conditioning or patterning that your parents carry and how that's impacted you in your journey.
I love this question because even just in the last 6 months, a lot more kind of came up for
Mhm.
me that was me healing the deeper, deeper wound beneath all of it and like really changing that resentment that I was carrying silently, not expressively, but silently for that path or for that part of my life, and really seeing it through the eyes of so much love. And so, let me share a few things. So I'm Armenian, and you know, I'll give you an example of like one of the moments where I lost my authenticity instantly and how that actually carried me through about almost 20 years of my life, which was I grew up in an Armenian household and I loved it. Like my best friends were Armenian and I did Armenian dance and a lot of the creative things that I did actually were through my Armenian culture, which is so special to me and it's a huge part of me and it's actually one of like part of my mission too is to help other first generation artists to like really embrace the duality there. So I feel called to kind of do that in the near future. But I went to Armenian day school, and when I was in first grade, my parents took me and all my aunts took all of our cousins out and went to American school. And I remember in second grade, I went up to the front of the class because it was a new class and I was the new student. And I introduced myself and I was like, "Hi, I'm Karin hadadan. I'm Armenian." And a bunch of these guys in the class, or boys, started laughing when I said my name. And the teacher didn't do anything because she was also, American. And I remember coming home and telling my mom about that. And she said, "Okay, like I'm sorry, but it's an American school. Maybe we go by Karen." I was like, "Okay." So I go by Karen my entire adult life. In my jobs, in college, in internships, even like in the corporate world. And that was the moment I lost my authenticity. And it took me a lot of inner work to remember that moment. Like that realization came to me when I was doing a hypnosis one day. And I was like, that was the root? Like, what? And that's the funny, like, not funny, but it's these micro little moments as a kid that in the grand scheme of things aren't deemed as traumatic, but for someone who's in second grade and someone laughing at your name, that is so traumatic. And you carry that until you reprogram that. And so when I think about my parents' reaction, it was perfect because, both of my parents immigrated separately. My mom was 9 years old, my dad was 18. My dad came here without parents, so he raised himself. So, like, he was the one teaching himself how to process his emotions or, him being his own support system. He had no financial backing. And then my mom had parents who didn't speak the language. They didn't drive. She did their taxes. She wasn't allowed to go to college. She had to go to community college. And so when I look at my parents, I see the most brilliant, beautiful souls who did amazing with the cards that they were dealt with.
Mhm.
Now, that being said, especially in an Armenian household or a Middle Eastern household, like we're not really taught of how to process our emotions. And like mental health doesn't really exist in that world. And I'm sure for you as well. And part of it is beautiful because like I love how optimistic my parents have been and how positive they are and how they have such deep faith that they see the light in every situation. But at the same time, like, where's the like how do I feel this anger? Or like I feel emotional. Like, is it safe for me to cry? Because I don't see my mom cry. So you kind of pick up all these things. And I think recently what I discovered was like I'm a Sagittarius as well. So for me, I just want to be free. I want to be free in how I create, in my time, in my space, and how I do things, in the life that I live. And the story that I made inside of my head all these years was that that background was actually a cage and that someone else had to free me. And it's like, no, I have the keys to that liberation and I just have to choose myself. But the gift in my culture is that, with the Armenian genocide and just like the suppression and the oppression, resilience is in my roots. And so what an honor that I get to celebrate my culture and show what resilience looks like in this modern day. And I feel like, yes, I've also felt like the black sheep, and I do certainly feel that in some way, but I think it's such a gift to our families to be the one that's a little different and a little woo-woo and a little crazy because, my parents have taught me everything that I know, but I'm also teaching them things that they don't know. And it's so beautiful to witness my mom, over the years get into mindfulness and reconnect with herself. And it's beautiful to witness my father seeing me fulfill my dreams and him coming to me and saying, I want to write a book about my life like I've always said. And so it kind of all comes first full circle. And something that I've also really honored, and I think anyone who's an immigrant, a child of an immigrant, I would invite you to just take a step back. You are allowed to dream beyond survival because of the ground beneath your feet that your parents and your families built. So I could sit here and say, I did this all myself, but that would be just a blatant lie. I would not be who I am without my parents and my family, without their limitations. and their friction, or like the friction in my culture and that resistance was actually the fuel propelling me, because every time I was doubted, it led me deeper into self-trust. Every time someone told me to be realistic, it actually led me to dream bigger. And then what ends up happening when you heal those wounds, you create your reality. And so you transform the relationships around you where people start to back off and they stop resisting you, and you realize, "Oh my God, I really liberated myself." And now by freeing myself, I'm holding up that mirror to those people to do the same for themselves. So I saw this quote. This is like so cheesy and silly, but it was like, it was a TikTok, and it was like, the black sheep of the family eventually become the goat. And I was like, I love that. And I'm holding on to that. And I'm starting to see it. And when you return to your authenticity, it's you remember that all of that is you. And I think about my inner child often, and I'm like, she loved being Armenian and she loved being in those rooms. And yes, there's a different side of me that comes out when I'm in that community versus the spiritual community, but it's all me. And I I would say I'm so grateful for those roots and that foundation. And it's an honor to be a woman right now to help redefine what does a first generation immigrant life look like, or can it look like? Because, m my parents' dream, the American dream, was really to build a foundation of stability and security and safety for their children to then fulfill their own dreams. So it's like, it's actually a gift to them for me to succeed doing what I came here to do.
Wow. All of that just landed so deeply, and so much of what you're saying, yeah, I resonate so deeply because I'm also the first generation American in my family. I have three older brothers. That actually the smallest age gap between me and my youngest brother is 12 years. So
Wow.
I'm the only woman. I have 17 cousins. They're all boys. I'm the only girl.
I'm the same.
Really?
I have all boys in my family. Yep.
But yeah, I just really resonate with what you said about it being kind of like your duty and such a privilege to step into your authenticity and just do the work to clear any baggage that there is, because then you become the permission field for others to then step into their authentic truth as well. And yeah, there's so much there that I could go back to, and I just want to sit with what I want to go back to first. So my grandparents actually were in World War II. They were in Poland while the Nazi occupation was happening, and my grandfather was actually on his way with his brother being transported to one of the camps. And
Mm.
they jumped out of the wagons to like escape. So recently, I've just been reflecting on my lineage and just how deep it goes. And there's just moments where I experience these like visceral bodily reactions of fear, or just like in the past more so because I feel like I've done so much work around the lack and the scarcity, and it's still here, but just this like deep survival instinct where I'm like, it's weird because I didn't grow up in survival, but it's like in the DNA. It's like
Mhm.
passed on from generation to generation. And also going back to what you said about endometriosis, I don't have endometriosis, but last time I was at the gynecologist, he was like, yeah, like these cramps, this might be the beginning of that. And at first I was really afraid and just like praying that that's not what the diagnosis is going to be. But then I was also sitting with the power of my mind and the power I have within myself to like change that story. Also just seeing how as the woman in the family, just being the one, and I feel like yeah, it's this weird knowing that I'm the one that's like here to break the cycle for my future daughters and my grandchildren. And all of the menstrual issues and menstrual things that come up, I feel like it's the pain that has never been processed by the women before, and it's like my duty and my responsibility, and we have that responsibility as women because it's like you keep carrying it generation after generation after generation, and it gets to a point where it's just like the body can't hold that anymore. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that just came up for me. I just went on a tangent.
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful. And like, thank you for sharing that history of your family. My family had a very similar experience with the Armenian genocide. And I quite literally wouldn't be here without the bravery of my lineage who, you know, hid and, did what they needed to do to survive. And I think what you mentioned is really important. And it was something that I learned on my journey is that some of the physical pain is not because of me or my reality or my life or my emotions. It is energetic and it is in the DNA. And I asked God one day, like when I was in the depths of it, I was like, I'm 26. Like, why me? Like, why me? This is so much for a 26-year-old. And like, I'm balancing a job and I'm trying to write and I'm dealing with everything else. Like, I'm single. Like, why me? And the voice that I kept hearing was because you are the one who is brave enough to face it
Mhm.
and to feel it. And when you think about the womb, right, that's the root chakra, and that's the chakra that governs safety and sovereignty. And when you think of like the sacral chakra, that's expression and creativity. And it's not just where we digest life or release. That is where we digest, or sorry, digest food or release, but where we digest our entire life. And what isn't processed in your mother or in her mother, that does get carried energetically. And if anyone has ever done like a womb healing session, you kind of discover like when you were in the womb, you took in the emotions that your mother didn't feel or the trauma that she felt or the suppression that she didn't allow herself to express. That all gets carried. And that's why it's also really important to give ourselves grace when we are processing and feeling emotions and to just allow it without attaching a story to it. That was the greatest thing that I witnessed transformation wise was like in the past, maybe a year or two ago, I would have that guttural, rock bottom, dark night of the soul, and I would blame myself. I'm like, oh my God, I did this to myself, and it's because of this and that trigger and that person and da da da. And now it's like, oh my God, I feel emotional. I'm just gonna wail and like go into fetal position and cry it out. I don't know what it's about. I don't care what it's about. It's just energy moving through me. And then I spend an hour crying, listening to Bonnie Bear, and then I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I feel good. Now I'm gonna watch like a funny rom-com. And then I just move on with it. And that is so freeing because it is the story we attach to it that actually deepens the suffering rather than just allowing it to pass through. And I will also say you have to give yourself time for your body to shift. I mean, I had surgery to remove my endometriosis 3 years ago, and it is only in the past like 6 months where my root chakra has like really unclenched. It still was like my Achilles heel. And it's interesting because despite I'm kind of like in the survival mode, I'm in the unknown, I got laid off from my job, I'm not making this consistent income, all those things. I've actually never felt more safe because I'm finally cultivating that safety with myself without the job that provided security, without the relationships that made me feel seen or safe. It's like when you discover your own sovereignty and that becomes your safety, your body is your safe space and your body stops sounding the alarms. But it's like, it's all of those layers. And when you get to a deeper layer, you have to celebrate. Like the only reason why you're accessing that is because you cleared out everything else
Mhm.
before it to access it. So if another trigger is coming up or like another deeper wound, celebrate that because you're really getting to like the root of it. So, and like pun intended, like the root chakra and whatnot.
That is a powerful reframe right there about just not feeling shame or not shaming yourself or not feeling guilt or making yourself wrong for feeling the emotions is so key. For me personally, for years, like there was so much shame. Like anytime I'd cry, it was just like, nope, I can't let myself feel that. So it'd just be this more suppress, suppress, repress, don't feel, don't show your sensitivity, don't show your weakness. Because a story that I also held for a long time is that my sensitivity makes me weak, or it makes me less than, or it makes me not enough because I'm not being strong. And yeah, like that wound from such a young age, like our bodies carry that. And it doesn't matter how old you are, you could be 40, but if you have that wound or that whatever happened, that programming at age 7, like that will carry to age 40 if you don't heal it and look at what that story is to rewire it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I love how you said just like allow yourself to feel it and like you'll get to the root of it at some point, and then you will allow yourself and give yourself the space to actually alchemize whatever pain, whatever hurt, and turn that into your gift and into your power.
Yeah. And two things I want to say on that. One, when we look at like oh my God, like the, not the pyramid, but like the levels of consciousness, right? Like, I think it's like obviously like peace, joy, love is at the top, fear, all that stuff is in the bottom, but the bottom is shame.
Mm,
So whether it's shame for feeling, whether it's shame about something sexual that you did, whether it's shame about the way you look, the shame about a habit you have, like all of those things kind of you have to heal all of those things to then elevate. And it's not that like you heal the shame and then you move. It's like a series of like going down to up, down to up, down to up. And over time, when you heal that shame of who you are or why you're doing certain things, that's when you elevate and you're able to stay in the higher vibration of inner peace and joy and self-love and kind of move past the fear, the separation. And
mhm,
then the second thing I want to say is the story, right, of that wound. I want to share my personal story. And again, it's like, it's so silly and stupid, but like when you clear it, it's like, oh my God, it really was this story. And the moment you break it, you're like, oh my God, I'm free. So, like I had mentioned that the I'm too much was my core wound. And part of that was because growing up, I wasn't really allowed to feel the lower end of the emotion. So anytime I would cry, what I would hear would be like, why are you crying? Stop crying. So as a kid, I took that as, oh my God, it's not safe to cry. It's not safe to express. It's not safe to just be. I have to hold that in. So all throughout my life, I did not cry. Like in the movie The Holiday, when Cameron Diaz is like trying to make herself cry, like that was me up until like 2, 3 years ago. And about a year ago, after doing all this inner work, I was like, why does that still trigger me? Like when someone tells me to stop crying, why does that trigger me? And I had a conversation with someone very close to me, and I asked them, like, why do you say that? Like, why is it then when I cry, it triggers you? Like, I'm just more so curious so that I can understand what this means to you, because this is what it means to me. And maybe we just have a different meaning, and like, that's how we get clarity. And the clarity that I received was that the only time apparently that I would cry or like really cry when I was a kid was when I wasn't getting my way. So I would cry to get my way. So the story that that person took away was that anytime Karin is crying, it's because she's like manipulating or like wants to get something out of it. And I was like, wait, that's the story for you? So like anytime I cry now, you think that I'm trying to get something out of it? That's not it at all. And
mhm,
that was the moment that we both broke the trigger for each other, that we both released the wound for each other. And that's a really big lesson in the world where we live in right now, where everyone's like let them be who they are and let them say this about you. It's I think that's actually a detriment because we're actually preventing ourselves from getting to the wound and healing the wound. And so I invite you, with whoever it is that is triggering you, whoever doesn't understand you, whoever is resisting you, I invite you after the anger, after the moment that you're activated, to get really curious and to have an honest conversation with that person and be brave enough to confront the situation, because most people are avoiding it. And if you can be the one that brings light to that wound, you are going to help people, help that person rewire their story and do the same for you. And
mhm.
that is what triggers reveal about everyone who needs healing. It's all just a story, and we're all playing a role in each other's story. So like, how can we be brave enough to acknowledge, like, I'm playing a role in this too. So are you. Let's rewrite the story for both of us. And that is how you really do start freeing yourself, and you also guide other people to free themselves.
That takes so much courage, so much courage. And for anyone listening, if you ever feel like it's hard to speak your truth, I would say first it's so important to just acknowledge what you're feeling. Like if there's anger, if you feel misunderstood, if you feel unseen, acknowledge that within yourself first and foremost, because if you kind of just brush it off and you don't make it what it is, you don't allow yourself to feel that, yeah, you're like angry or you're upset, you're feeling unseen, then you kind of just let that slide and that builds this low self-worth. And by having the courage and like owning what you're feeling and being like, yeah, I'm going to communicate this not from a place of reactiveness, but from a place of groundedness and from love for yourself
Yeah.
and also for the other person because you know you're shedding light amongst a wound for yourself and also for them. And it gives us opportunity to really break through to another level and just live in a more conscious, loving state of awareness.
Yeah, and what you said is the most important thing. It all comes back to love, right?
Mhm.
And when you remember that, it's like the person that's triggering you, God is working through them to you so that by holding up the mirror to show you where you are not yet free.
Mhm.
And you're doing the same for that person. And having a hard conversation takes a lot of courage. But in my opinion, what I've learned is what's harder is not having the conversation. Because then what happens is you're carrying this density and you have this cloud over you and your heart feels heavy. And that to me is so much harder than just like ripping the band-aid off and just speaking my truth. And I think if you're coming to the conversations with honesty and like not needing the other person to change, because if you're going into a conversation with an attachment to an outcome of like this person needs to be different, then that's not love, right? That's still ego. That's still you wanting to be to them, you wanting them to be someone that they're not. And that's not love, right? If you're coming into the conversations with, respect and gratitude and you wanting the relationship to be what you know it can be, then that's different. And as long as you accept them for who they are, then they will mirror that and accept you for who you are. And I think that's a question that I began asking myself for the past year. It's like, okay, yes, I feel like this person doesn't understand me, but am I not understanding them? Interesting that I don't feel seen, but I'm also not seeing them. So again, it's like, what is your role in that dynamic? And can you be brave enough to actually get really honest with yourself first? Like, that's actually the harder part is to be like, oh shit, like this is a part of my own spiritual path and awakening. And like, I'm actually being invited to embody more unconditional self-love.
Mhm.
And that's why this dynamic is happening. And isn't that a gift? Because you are elevating your consciousness, and that energy shift is what allows you to change the world around you, but it first has to be changed within you.
Yeah, wow, what you just said there, that's like a layer deeper of also recognizing, like, whoa, like, what's my role here and what is here for me to look at within myself. And also, like, in all of this, if you're going into a conversation, like, you're the one that is holding the field.
Well, one other thing I will say to that is the conversation will be whatever God wants the conversation to be. I've
Mhm.
had many moments where I've spoken my truth and it was just like, oh my God, I feel like I'm being attacked. Like left and right, trigger, 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 like activated. Oh my God, it's like I feel like my inner child again. But it was perfect because that is the healing, right? You have to feel it. And then other times I've had conversations where I operated with love and light, and not that I wasn't operating from love and light before, but I did get angry or I did lash out or I did say things I didn't mean. Sometimes I've had conversations where I've spoken my truth and it was like instantly it was solved. And I'm like, whoa, it could be easy, but it's always the journey your soul is choosing to go on. And so again, it goes back to the shame. So if you have a conversation and you're like, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to speak my truth, and it ends up being this like pandemonium, that's part of it. And you have to not feel shame for that as well. So it's like it's kind of like this mind fuck because in one breath you're like, okay, I know I can create my reality and I know my energy is powerful and I know what love and light does. But at the same time, we have to remind ourselves of our humanity and honor that and not feel shame for that as well. And I feel like no one really talks about that in the spiritual community. It's always like love and light. And it's like, yeah, but also in order to access an even deeper love and light, you have to release what needs to be moved through you.
Mhm. I think this is really important too in building self-worth and self-confidence because if you keep repressing, you're just building deeper disempowerment and like holding on to these lower vibrational emotions and frequencies of being. So even if you're like a joyful person and you have these like lower vibrational emotions, holding guilt, shame, anything like that's going to bring down your baseline. But as soon as you can free that, it kind of allows you to shoot up in the levels of consciousness, which is beautiful. And yeah, I'm just curious to know for you, like what has helped you build confidence? I'm not sure if you've dealt with low self-worth. I'm sure you've dealt with it in your own ways throughout your journey. So I'm curious to know what that has been like for you and what has really allowed you to come into your authentic self to like write and just have so much, it feels like you have so much confidence and certainty in the way that you speak and also the way that you write. There's just a clarity
Mm.
that, I read books sometimes or like I'll read posts on Instagram and it just feels like word information, like it's good, but like what you say really lands. So, yeah, I'm curious to know your process with that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Oh my God. I think self-worth, I think it goes back to it's really about keeping the promises that you're making to yourself and honoring them
Mhm.
and not diverting out of that because of what the outside world is making you believe about yourself. Now, there's a lot of inner work that allowed me to remember my authenticity, right? I love to be magnetic. It's an incredible neural manifestation tool. And it's about manifestation, but it's more so about returning to your authentic whole magnetic. Do you do it?
To just join their community.
Oh my God, amazing. I'm so excited for you. Welcome to your next level. That work is incredible. My daily practices, to be honest, like I think it's really getting clear on my energy field. That's, I think, been the through line, and that's why every morning I don't check my phone in the first thing in the first hour. Not the first hour, but like the first 30 minutes at least. I stretch, I journal, I sit outside if it's nice out, I lay under the sun. I move my body. Like those, I'm in my own energy field and then I meditate and that's where I remember my higher self and I get her guidance and I start to embody the energy of her, which is wholeness and magnetism and quiet confidence, right? And I think it's funny you say that regarding my voice because that's actually been something that's been coming up for me recently is like I'm being asked, like, do I really believe that my authentic soul's voice is powerful enough to create the miracles that I want, or like the opportunities that I want, or to do the things that I want creatively? Thank you. And that's actually been something that's been coming up, and I actually spent time yesterday going through my entire body of work. Like I flipped through my first book, my second book. I went through my old Substack essays. Scrolled through my Instagram page. I reread my screenplay. And I'm going to be honest, like it wasn't that I never doubted myself. Of course I did. We all do. It's that I didn't let that self-doubt stop me from showing up and doing the things that I loved. And that is how confidence is built, is like the doubt exists, the imposter syndrome exists, but it's like, are you going to listen and act on that voice? Or are you going to listen to the heart and to what God is calling you to create? And I think every time, I've faced the self-doubt with my journey, it's like I pray for guidance and I pray for clarity. And it's like the sign is shown, or I end up being at the right place at the right time. And it kind of is building that trust muscle. And um, and I think it's micro moments throughout the day. It's not just like I did this one thing and oh my God, I'm so confident in who I am. It's it's the entire journey that was rooted in continuously coming back to my soul and continuously allowing that inner child to shine. Because when we think of our inner child, like they never doubted themselves. Like they walked into a room and they're like, I don't like the vibe in here. And they walked out. Or they just created things because it was fun to create. And it's like, how can you embody that state of, you know, self-trust and self-belief again? So it's been this whole journey. And something about I've actually been starting to write the Substack piece, and something that I've been marinating on is like your soul's voice changes and is different depending on what you're writing about or how you're speaking or who you're speaking to. And so I think we've all kind of assumed that like your authenticity is like this one version of you, but true authenticity is integrating all of it and giving a microphone to every part of yourself. And so sometimes like when I write, I'm writing in a specific tone, and then other times I'm writing in a different way, but it's all me, it's all my voice. And I think that's where the confidence comes in as well, is knowing that all of it is a reflection of me when I honor the truth and when I just am a vessel and a channel to release whatever wants to come through me. I don't know if that answered your question, but
For sure. I mean, you can kind of coin and like come onto this as well, but I feel like that's also what builds self-trust is
Mhm.
like trusting that like these different versions or parts or voices or ways of expression that are coming through you are all perfect. Like you are the vessel and trusting that. Because there's been so many parts on my journey where I've felt an inkling or I feel a pull or I'll feel just this download come through. And there'll be so much doubt where I'm like, I can't do that. And reflecting on it, there's been so many times where that has happened in the past. And now I'm coming into the stage, like in the last year, it's been like, no, like I am the vessel. Like I'm just going to allow it to come through me and like not judge what comes through. Like I don't have to publish or like externally put everything out, but like I can allow myself to be that creative vessel and not block my inner child from expressing herself. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that you spoke about that and just how the doubt is going to be there, the imposter syndrome is going to be there. Like, I even feel that with this podcast sometimes. I've been doing it for 4 years on and off. And recently, the beginning of this year, I really started getting back onto it and starting to invite guests. And that was a huge block for me where I was like, what if I mess up? What if my voice shakes? And in the beginning of this podcast, my voice did shake because I was feeling anxious today and just like, holding something that I'm working through. But who cares? Like, that's me, that's raw. It's my expression right now, and it's okay. So,
Yeah, and it's so perfect, right? Like your pauses were perfect because it allowed you to get clarity on what actually wants to come through. And I think it's actually beautiful that you're giving yourself a minute to like recenter. Most people would just like, "Oh, next topic." And so I think that's a reflection of your integrity and your honesty. And that's something that I'm reminding myself as well as of late, because lately, I feel like my calling and my purpose and my writing, all of it has felt too much like work versus play. And I had this moment yesterday where I was like, oh my God, like I'm living my dream life of being like a full-time writer. I'm not complaining about that, but I think sometimes you get so in it that you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Like this isn't how I want to do this, right? And I had this moment yesterday where I was like kind of grieving before I got laid off from my job because my Instagram page was my outlet. You know, my Substack was a playground. Like writing was my escape. It was where I connected with myself. And now it's like, oh my God, I have to show up every day and I have to post and I have to sell books and I have to write an essay and da 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 da. And I took a step back and I was like, why am I putting myself in my own cage again? Like, I have, I get to set the tone of this. And it was a really important wake-up call for me last night where I just discovered like, it doesn't, I don't have to look at this whole thing so seriously. Like, it can be fun, right? Like having a podcast and like inviting guests can be so much fun. Like, yes, there are blocks that we face and whatever, but someone once told me like the real imposter is you not being who you are.
Mhm.
Like that's the imposter syndrome. So it's funny because every time I felt that imposter syndrome, it wasn't that the opportunity that came to me made me feel like I wasn't good enough. It was actually me recognizing, oh my God, that's a real reflection of what I want to do. And then it's my ego trying to keep me safe and small because that might lead to more visibility or it might lead to more expansion. And right, the ego wants to protect us. So it's really interesting how we kind of are getting the things that we prayed for, and then our ego wants to like go back to safety. And that's the up level, which is the ego is a terrible master, but an incredible servant. And again, it's like you can't feel shame for even that part of yourself because the ego has to continuously burn for your soul to continuously shine brighter.
Yeah, I think that goes to say too that life is not just this linear line of like climbing the steps. It's this spiral where, yeah, you're gonna get to a new level. My friend, who's a transpersonal psychotherapist, she said this to me the other day. She's like, new level, new devil. So
Yeah.
you'll reach a new place, and then there will be all of these new challenges that come up and just hit you, and you'll be tested. And yeah, it's like you never fully arrive. Like, I mean, you can see it from this perspective that you are already arrived right now because this is
Yes.
the moment that you have. And like having this idea that getting to this place is actually going to keep you in this rat race, even if you're not working a corporate job, even if you are pursuing a creative or entrepreneurial path, like there's still those traps that come where, yeah, like you said, you were writing and like getting into this work mode. I feel like that's always going to be something that comes up, and that's where it comes where we have to just like really check in with ourselves and be like, whoa, like, am I doing this because I love this, or is that love starting to
Mhm.
diminish because we're trying to force ourselves and we're entering these old programs of having to do because we need to get to XYZ?
Yeah, and that's the old paradigm way of being, right? Like the new paradigm way of being is just existing and like it's the feminine flow state and it's really learning how to balance the masculine and feminine, but it's very individualized. And so something that I'm starting to really do is like ask myself, whose voice is this?
Mhm.
Like, why did I, like, something that came to me recently was like, why did I start creating this structure on my Substack where I post 5 times a week? Like, where did that come from? And
Mhm.
then I traced it all the way back, and it was because I saw like another creator who was making like 100K annually, and she had written an essay and she wrote like you have to start treating your Substack like a job. And I was like 6 months ago, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start 5 days a week post it. And then yesterday I was like, why the fuck am I doing that? Like that's not aligned. Like that's not me living in alignment and like being a channel. Like I don't work well when I have rigidity or structure. What works for me is when I just create with whatever God is calling me to create in every moment. I can't plan what I'm going to want to write about on a Friday, on a Monday. Like it just was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And so I think we also have a lot of programming that is like coming from social media. We don't even realize that we're taking it in, but that actually ends up being the action you take. And then that's how you steer off of alignment. And when I was in Europe last week, I was away for 10 days, and for a week I deleted Instagram. And I was very mindful of like how much I scrolled on TikTok or whatever, but specifically Instagram. And it was so fascinating because I kind of had this aversion even for any social media. I didn't post, I didn't create, I didn't even scroll that much. And all of a sudden, all of this clarity came to me of what kind of artist I want to be. How do I want to run my business? How do I want to show up online? And I was like, wait a minute, I don't want to play that old game. And everyone's telling you to play the old game of like be consistent and post a podcast every week and make sure you alternate with a guest and a solo. And it's like, who the fuck created these rules? People in the old paradigm. So it's like you have to start asking yourself, like, what is my version of these things and what feels true for me in this chapter. And I think it's really important, whether it's monthly or quarterly, to take a step back and be like, okay, that worked a little bit and it worked up until this moment, but is this still sustainable with the life I want to live now? Because I'm a different person than I was 3 months ago. And so there's all these little moments that we have to really get into stillness and check in with ourselves and really get clear on, you know, how do I want to do this?
Mhm.
Because we can be on the aligned path. I think everyone pretty much is on the aligned path. It's that how we are doing the things might not be aligned. And that's that kind of like that refinement period. And I think a lot of us right now are in that refinement of like, okay, we're doing the right things, we're showing up, we're doing the inner work, we're building what we came here to build. But now let's take a step back and ask, is how we are doing it still feeling true to our soul?
Wow, that's so resonant. That's actually something that I've been going through the last few months. I actually moved from Central America back to New Jersey with my parents right now. I'm in this transition, and it's been this whole journey of really taking a step back from all of the soul work and soul expressions that I've been pursuing and just realizing, like, wow, it's not even exciting me in the way that it did, and I know that that's wrong, and like something in me and my approach to it, I have to like recreate the fun and the presence that I once felt when I first started it. The morning practice is so important. The first hour before you start your day, touch your soul before the world touches you, and I think that goes to say with the importance of the practice of just getting in touch and in tune with your own energy first before all the external stimuli hits you, because like you have your phone, you have the content. If you go into work or just like being in the field of energy, like you live in New Jersey too, I'm
Mhm.
curious for you how it feels being in this kind of like hustle and grind mode, because the tri-state area is just so dense in population and proximity to people. A lot of people are in this mindset of just like hustle, hustle, 9 to 5, like get to work. And for me personally, that's been affecting me because I'm fully on my own path. And sometimes I feel the weight of the field kind of get to me. And I'm like, why do I feel like I need to be doing something? Or like, why do I feel like I need to be doing this in order to this? So, yeah, curious.
Yeah, and that question that you just asked of like why am I feeling pressured? That's online and offline. Like it could be in the location you're in. You know, I live right across Manhattan, so it's like when I'm in New York and I'm walking around, I'm like, oh my God, everyone's rushing and like, why is everyone taking everything so seriously and da 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 da. But then also when you scroll on Instagram, everyone's like, you got to have your life figured out and you know, I'm this and that. And so it's everywhere. But I think for me, it was like I used to live in New York when I was in college, and I'm so grateful I had that experience, like scratched that teenage itch of mine. And I was meant to hustle. Like all of these years, I was meant to hustle. I'm a projector in human design, so like that's part of like this refinement for me. It's like, why am I acting like a generator? Like that's besides the point. But like all of these years, I've been hustling. And when I was in college, I built my resume to get my dream job. And then I got the dream job, and then I built the business. And then I built the business, and I tried all of these different things. I wrote 3 books. I did this, I whatever. And I was meant to do all of that to then bring myself to this moment and have that foundation and now decide what do I want my life to feel like. And for me, my physical space is so important. Like my home is my sanctuary, and I've designed it in a way that it's very calming and grounding. Like everything in my apartment is neutral because I want this to feel like a neutral, energetic space. And in my bedroom, there's nothing on the walls. I have like lime wash to like remind me of like that ancient sacred essence. Um, and I'm mindful of like what parts of my apartment I work or like where I lounge or where I relax. It's really like the environment around you is the most important thing. But I will say when you really return to wholeness and embody your wholeness, you can be anywhere in the world and feel at home within yourself.
Mhm.
That's the goal, right? And I recognized this when I was in the south of France last year. I was on my first solo trip, and that's when I experienced that really for the first time. And it was so interesting because it was the first trip that I had taken where I wasn't missing my home. Like I was like, I don't really miss that because I have it here. And
Mhm.
so even when I'm in New York and it's insane and crazy and everyone's like running 10 miles to catch the subway, I'm still walking slow because I'm like, I'll catch whatever subway I'm supposed to be on. So why would I run towards it? Like I, you know, that's just kind of how I operate now. And I think it's a gift to have both for me, like to be so close to Manhattan, but then also live in New Jersey and be in nature and be by the water and actually hear birds chirp without like ambulances going off. And you need that dichotomy because like part of me is like, oh my God, I want to live on a farm. And then I'm like, but do I really want that? I don't know because I actually do thrive in the action and like the glitz and the glamour and the bouginess. So again, it's like I think it's creating a life that honors all these different dimensions and sides of you. Like there is a part of me that wants to just like fuck off to the south of France and like get a cottage and like live there. But then there's a part of me that like loves being at a beach club. So it's like how can I honor all these different parts of myself? And I think the reason why I'm able to do that is because I've really cultivated that safe home within me. So no matter where I am, I'm at home.
Wow. Yes, beautiful. And also throughout life, as you travel, you will find your place. Like you'll
Mhm.
find a place that resonates. I know we're a little short on time, so I want to ask you one more question, and it's if you could say anything to your younger self or to the listener, what would be that piece of advice or wisdom coming from your heart?
Let me think about this. You already know. That's what I would tell my younger self. I'd say you already know who you are, what you want, what you came here to do. And I think I would just kind of observe her. Like, it's funny because this revelation came to me when I was traveling because I had gone to I was in Dubrovnik, and the last time I was there was 8 years ago when I was writing little poems for myself on my notes app. And it was this full circle moment because I had brought my new book and I'm like, oh my gosh, like 8 years later and I have 3 books under my belt. And like some of the poems that I wrote on this beach are in that first book. Like, whoa. And it just hit me that I have been speaking. I was like, this version of me was the one whispering to my 16-year-old self. And I think the same goes for all of us, right? Like your higher self, like you are your own guardian angel. Your intuition is really like that future self that is pulling you toward forward. Um, and so I would just remind her, like you already know, and then I would just let her be her. Like everything that I experienced, everything that I am experiencing, all of it is so perfect. It is so divinely orchestrated. And I know it's so cliche, but like you are always where you are meant to be, but you are always where your soul wants to be. And I think we have to remind ourselves of that and that I wouldn't change a single thing. So, can we all just embrace where we are and where our feet are right in this moment, knowing that it's the exact step that you have to be at in order to walk towards whatever it is that you know you are meant for.
That's so beautiful and such a powerful reminder for myself as well. And I hope you're taking that in for
Yeah.
yourself and your inner child. There's so much more that we could have done.
I know.
I want to, but I know we're short on time. I'm so grateful that you responded and that we were able to do this podcast together. It'd be so fun to do another one in the future and dive
Yeah.
into the topics. But yeah, where can the listeners find you?
Thank you so much for having me. You are such a light. So thank you for holding space and allowing me to share my own light. So I really appreciate you reaching out to me. Where can everyone find me? My Instagram is at ICIETNU. If you search my name on Amazon, you'll find all three of my books. My Substack is just my name.substack.com. Everything is pretty much linked in my Instagram, and then my TikTok is also my name. But I would just say, wherever you are in your life, hopefully my work can help guide you back to yourself. And if you just even stayed until this point, like you already know what you're doing. You're already on the right path. So just want to remind everyone that.
Yeah, amen, sister. These conversations are always so good. And by the end of it, I always just feel such a fullness in my heart of like, yes, these conversations need to be broadcasted out into the world because, yeah, there's people that want to pursue their soul path and step into more authenticity and wholeness and just don't have the guides around them in their physical reality. So, yeah, if you're here and listening, thank you. And thank you, Karin. This was so sweet.
Thank you so much. Thanks, guys, for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to share it with your friends, people you love, and someone that you know would benefit from really just tuning into this conversation. And also rate the podcast on Spotify so that we can just get this out to as many women as possible that are just like you on their journey of healing, coming back to wholeness, and reclaiming their authentic self and sovereignty. I love you, and I will see you next week.